thanks for chatting to me and Noisegate. How did you guys get into like video game music? And I think all three of you come from a pretty like a music background and didn't start in video games.
Yeah, so God, for me, I was in a group called Riverboy Beats, and I think I only just made a Twitter account, or like had recently made a Twitter account and was like literally like just working my way around it, and someone followed me on it. They had like a gamey looking icon.
Yeah.
And it was Julian, who I later made Cult of the Lamb with. But I hit him up and I was like, "Oh, hey man, do you make games? I love games." And he was like, "Oh, I really like your music." Yeah, it was just like luck of the universe.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so games are some of my like earliest influences in music for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, just playing like Donkey Kong.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, on the Super Nintendo, and yeah, for sure.
I'm similar story. I got to work in Stray Gods because of tweeting. Stray Gods is the game that Yon and I worked on, which is the musical adventure RPG.
Yeah.
You play as a woman named Grace who gets into a big mess with like modern Greek gods, and you sort of proceed through conflict and conversations with people through song and making choices within those songs about what direction they go in. But I ended up songwriting on it because I tweeted I would like to work on a game, and Liam Esler, who's one of the co-founders of Summerfall Studios who made the game, tweeted back and was like, "Hey, we're actually thinking of you already because we need some songwriting work done, basically." And that's pretty much how that happened.
So weird, isn't it?
It is really funny. I now am working as a composer on a new game that's just got like Vic Screen and Screen Australia funding, which only has a working title at the moment, Project Dairy Cat, and the studio is Wally Studios, and I got involved with that because people that were working on the Summerfall game are now working on this studio. They've co-founded it, and they asked me if I wanted to get involved, and I was very happy to. So I've always loved video game music.
But have you always thought about maybe writing for it or producing music?
Not always. When I was a kid, I didn't even know I would be a music artist. Growing up, like came from an immigrant family, and what was on the cards for me was like becoming a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer, whatever, the classic sort of expectations. It was very much an accident to get into music, and it took me time to adjust to the idea that I was going to be doing music as well. And then once I adjusted to that, only then was I able to consider other possibilities.
How about yourself? Like, you obviously the group Tripod, and did you sort of fall into it as well, or did you send a tweet as well? Or
it was a bit of a weird route because like we wrote songs and did music and mixed that with comedy for 30 years or so, probably 20 by the time we got to this. And we also kind of, our safe space as co-workers was games. Like when we're on tour, instead of talking about our feelings, we would play, we would play Halo or something in the hotel room. Like it got really involved. Like for a period, we had a road case that had a projector and so it was like,
that's cool.
Just so we knew anywhere we went, we could play games.
Yeah.
So that's kind of in the background. And then the MSO approached us to do a show, and it was a very open-ended approach. And initially it was going to be about Star Wars and our relationship with Star Wars. And I had all these ideas for like, at putting lyrics over all these suites of existing Star Wars music, and they came back with a hard no because there was no way John Williams was going to. And I'm glad they did because our manager goes, "Well, why don't you do it? You guys all have a common interest in games. Why don't you do that idea but about games, your relationships and your lives through the prism of games?" So we wrote this thing. It was sort of like half concert, half musical, and they got a guy called Austin Wintory to come over and orchestrate and conduct the show. And then we started this relationship with him, and he's just had us do a few different projects, and that brought us up to working on the thing with Montaigne.
So I guess the same question, did you ever see yourself writing music for games, or did it ever
Not
come
really.
into your head? Like when you were playing Halo in the hotel room or something?
I don't know, like I do, I mean, I still don't sort of feel like I have. I mean, what we did in the game
It's songwriting. It's not
songwriting.
It wasn't composing.
It's songwriting, but it does have the bit that feels like game writing is all the interactive aspect of it. but it's not. Yeah, it's definitely not scoring.
Yeah.
It's super different. It's much more in the songwriting camp.
Yeah.
Did that change how you went about producing and writing the music in both your like how you used to write music and then for this particular project?
Yeah, I think necessarily you have to sort of switch up your approach if you're working on a project with a big group and a shared vision and stuff like that. My project was all about ego and it's all about myself, and I set the parameters and make all the decisions and aesthetic choices, where with this one it was like we have characters and a story and a world and plot, and we need that to be reflected in the lyrics and stuff. So yeah.
Well, Noisegate's all about, you know, music technology and instruments and music production. So I kind of wanted to ask you a few questions about the actual tools that you're writing music with. Like, did you sort of, again, because it's a different medium, did you go, okay, I'm going to try something different, or did you revert back to your safe ways of making music? Like, did you try out different tools?
Yeah, so I feel like a bit of both. Like definitely it's definitely that working with a team. So you kind of, it's not just all about your sound, but at the same time, I feel like I kind of always made like cute, spooky music anyway, which like Cult of the Lamb kind of has the aesthetic of music that I was already kind of making. I just had to like bend it a little bit to make it fit. And they wanted Julian always wanted the music to be like music you would listen to outside of the game as well. That was like kind of one of his.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it was I was like really lucky.
Why not? Like why can't it be good enough that it would stand on its own?
Yeah.
Why not have that aspiration?
Yeah. So I always felt really lucky that it was like I was able to just like make cool songs that like were also in a video game that people are forced to listen to. I've always been in the box, so I'm an Ableton boy. Ableton boy, and what else do I use? I use generally I would just I buy Complete. I generally upgrade that like every year and just like hunt around in that and find weird things that I haven't used before. Find new sounds. I bought choir libraries because I'm like, I'm gonna need some voices. That was like and I bought this one library called like Voices of Wind by Audi, and that became like the staple like choir sound in the game. So that's like very specific with the game. There are a few sounds that I found in some random libraries with Complete Ultimate that became like go-to sounds. Also, like I would make like effects racks and things, and whenever I'd make something that I really liked in the game, I'd always save it into like its own little spot. And so I've kind of got like a library of the game that is ever growing. So I can always like go to my like go-to instruments or add new ones in.
For Straight Gods, I do work in Ableton Live. It's the only DAW I've ever used. I've watched a lot of people use different ones, but that's what I trained in. And my role was mostly to just record to piano, so just my voice basically. I'd use some light reverb because I was recording in just like, you know, it was in 2020 and 2021, we were in lockdown, and I was just like sitting on my bed in my bedroom because my partner was working from home in the study and, you know, like doing his corporate job. And I just have like an SM58. It's like, I haven't wrote NT1A as well, but like I don't have any treated spaces, so that doesn't work all the time when I'm recording vocals. But SM58 on the bed. I at the time had like an Apogee Duet 2 that has since shat itself. Actually, it wasn't 2, it was 1. I had it for like 10 years, but and just like recording tables. I use like Valhalla, like reverb plugins mostly. Although I nowadays use just a lot of Ableton stock reverb. I actually think that often gets the job done now that I know how to use it.
Do you take a lot of time like hunting for something? Like if you're doing an effect, for instance, do you take a lot of time to hunt what you're looking for, or do you sort of just start somewhere and
it depends. Sometimes I do take a lot of time and then it's not worth it, and sometimes I do take a lot of time and it is worth it. You kind of just have to like pick your moments, I guess, and know how much time you have. But you know, these were mostly demos, so I didn't have to go crazy with it. It was literally just like, got to get the vocal down clearly so people can hear. That was the extent for me, because Austin was like composing the beds, the backing tracks and stuff. But sometimes that was MIDI though. Like sometimes I would be like, I actually think it should be these chords, and I just play it in just like the Ableton grand piano stock MIDI plugin. So
it's amazing how good all the bass products are. Like, it's such a great place to start.
Did the SM58 takes make it into the game, or did you re-record those? Like,
No,
was that
because
demos?
it's all voice actors. It's all like different actors.
Oh, it's not
singing
your.
for my
Yeah,
voice.
it's all.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm writing for other people.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Did your voice make it into the Cult of the Lamb?
Yeah, I'm actually, I did sing on a couple of tracks actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, just because I wanted some. I was just like, oh, this would be cool with some singing on it, and it's just like with Cult of the Lamb, like it was just like whatever I wanted to do, I just tried to do it the most immediate way possible. Even with like a lot of the voices in the game, like we would just record our like whoever was around, like if our friend was over, we just like get them in the studio and like put them in the game, or like it was just like it was so like DIY.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I wanted some voice, and I was like, well, I guess I could sing it in.
Yeah, because were you doing the sound effects too?
No, so Jonas Turner did the bulk of them.
Okay.
But he's since moved on to other projects, and I've been doing them. He did the bulk of them, and then I took over after him.
Cool.
So I'm doing all the audio now.
Yeah, right.
Cool. Do you see yourself like wanting to explore different sounds, like future projects? Like, do you look for that kind of thing, or is it about like writing first and then finding the sound later?
I flirt with looking for sounds, but really, nearly everything I write ends up with someone who is just much better at that stuff. You know, like so. My general default is like really, really shit demos. Like I try and sing it in tune, so you know what I had in mind. So I do a lot of comping just so I make sure it's all in tune.
Is this just piano demos?
Sometimes it's piano. Sometimes like Austin would have sent some MIDI that I'm literally singing over. Sometimes it's like me playing a guitar, and I'm so poor that I have to like record it a bar at a time. Like I'm just like doing 20 takes of like getting that same bar going, you know, like filling up, take.
I'm the same.
Like it's hopeless.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same.
Yeah, lots of people. I'm the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing that was technically my biggest friend, the nerdiest thing I can say really in this conversation, and I got this from Scott, one of the tripod guys, is when we were making what we called the little Lego bricks, the little pieces of the puzzle that make up these interactive songs. I would use in Logic, there's this thing called the arrangement function, and it's just a little thing that can go across the timeline up where the tempo and stuff is. And you can just really quickly move around the whole, whatever's going on there, just move it around in the song. Like I'm sure other DAWs have similar
Well, I think
things, but it was super useful in that
It's a
process.
simple little tool, better and easier to use because, you know, I see so many different music technology brands coming out. They're always coming out with something new. There's always a new instrument to play with. I'm just always interested with people who are primarily songwriters and composers. Like, it can be very overwhelming when you're trying.
And expensive.
You're like, oh, maybe I should buy. Maybe I should get a new instrument, and then you sort of look out there, and it's just a sea of things. It's often, I think, important to sort of step back and just be like, let's start with the idea and find the sound later and all that kind of thing.
I'm a sound head, I would say. I only started producing in the last 4 years, like since the pandemic, because previously I had done sessions with producers in order to finish my songs, and then in 2020 I was like, will I ever do a session ever again? So I started learning properly, and now, you know, I was fucking shit for like the first 3 years, but I've kind of crested a hill, and I actually feel like I can produce professional sounding music now, and I very much rely on like Splice. I really love using other people's samples and fucking with them. And there's just like a lot of good stuff there. I think like as you were talking about like starting with an idea, Splice has like what they call literally like song starters, which is just like, you know, maybe it's like a strings track or a guitar track that's just playing a bunch of chords, and just to get on with things and make sure I have a quick start so people aren't bored. I'll just like grab a guitar lick or something, and they'll start building around that. I'll probably just end up like chopping it and stuff. Splice I think is such a great tool for that reason, and also awesome like drum and percussion samples. You know, it doesn't always have exactly what you want, but it's like often really good. But otherwise I'm also on Reddit a lot, like just searching drum kit pack Reddit and Google or whatever, and just seeing whatever people have to like download a media file or whatever. I really like searching around, especially honestly, like we were saying, Ableton's like stock synths and stuff can be really good. And sometimes all you need to do is just have some really good effects processing plugins. Like I use a plugin called Tornado, which I abuse. It's crazy. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
Yeah, another one. Yeah.
Tornado is crazy. Anyway, it's got a very specific sound. Like you can sort of start to. It's kind of like stutter and edit as well. I think it's by Waves. It's like once you've got like the ear for it, you know, like oh that's that plugin kind of thing. Like you don't want to use it too much just in case. But yeah, all like processing stuff to me is like the most interesting space because you can kind of make any sound turn into a different type of sound if you can get your head around that stuff. And then like I have a really small studio set up. Like I don't have a studio. I have like a tiny room in my apartment that I share with my partner. Yeah. And so I just have a little MIDI controller. Honestly, I think it's shit. Yep. Sorry, Launch Key Mini, but I don't like you, and I wish I had a different one. And I have a Yamaha Reface CS synth.
The Refaces are great.
It's really good. I really like it, and yeah.
I saw the last Nick Cave tour they did. He was literally sitting there with a Reface on his knees.
Yeah, because
at
it's like
Hanging
that
Rock.
Yeah.
And it just sounded absolutely huge.
It's a really good synth, and I've used that a lot. A lot of versatility. I use it because like one of my favorite Japanese artists used it on her record, and she was mostly using it for like bass, which I thought was crazy because again it's like this tiny and really portable, and it gets.
It's also easy to use, and you can't get lost in it.
No, yeah.
Which is I think some people get scared when they see things with lots of settings and lots of knobs and that kind of thing.
Yeah, too much LFO stuff.
So what's next? Do you think you'll continue in this sort of world of video game music and songwriting? Would you like to? Or
yeah, I think I will for sure. I can't talk about what I'm working on, but yeah, I will for sure.
Yeah. Look, as it comes up, like generally stuff sort of happens. Something Austin will bring up, and there'll be something.
Yeah, Austin's very generous. He's always looking for opportunities for other people, which is very
sweet. He's a connector.
Yeah, exactly. I'm working on that new game. I mean, I haven't actually begun work yet. We have a Discord, we're chatting, we're talking about the art and the story and all that stuff. But I don't think I'll begin work on it until the beginning of next year. And I'm really excited about that. Cool. I don't know if I'll take on another contract in the meantime because I'm also working on an album, and that would be way too chaotic. But I would love to keep doing games.
Cool. So is it the key to getting into video game music tweeting, or
sounds like it? 2 out of 3 times.
If you're someone who's maybe a music producer or just got into music production at home during COVID, is there like a hot tip or a way that you go about?
It seems to me like everyone gets into games in a different way.
Yeah.
Like that's weird. That's odd that we both have the same route, but because we both come from like a pop background as well, or like a radio music background.
Yeah.
But yeah, people get into it in different ways. But I would say, I guess, like just engage with the community, go out to events, just be like a nice person. Don't try and sell yourself too hard. Like get to know people before you ask like if they need a composer. Because apparently I heard one game dev was telling me that they get like their studio gets most emails asking if they need a composer. Like that's like the most common application. So like you just got to be a bit careful before you just like join that bet of do you need a composer.
I think you obviously want to be working on your music and your chops as well, right? Like and then if it's not where it needs to be, like you need to be comfortable taking feedback as well. Like I think there's like I see people in forums online sometimes who like ask for feedback from the forums, and then when people give their honest opinion they like just totally reject it, and you can't be like that.
You've got to be real, especially like on that game that we worked on. Like I did so the songs that we worked, some of the songs that we worked on, like they might play through for 3 to 5 minutes, but there's about 25 minutes or 30 minutes of music that you didn't play. And I did like 2 complete drafts of one particular song before the third one was something everyone liked. And I had to just take it. Like I had to just go, all right. Well, at least we've eliminated that version of it. Like
like even if you are an established composer who got the gig, you're still going to get people saying, I don't know about that, please try again.
And I also think like non-musicians often like listen to them. Like they often have the best takes on what you're doing, because the musicians might hear the details in what you're doing and be a bit seeing it a bit more like the way you do, whereas non-musicians might really give you a perspective that you hadn't imagined on what you're doing.
Yeah, I always feel like whatever feedback you get, I always feel like whenever I take it on, even if I like don't necessarily agree with it to start with, it always like improves the song. It always makes it better in the end. I definitely agree with that. Like, listen to what people say, because often it is like the best feedback.
And often people give a suggestion,
Yeah.
and you really hate the suggestion, but the thing to do is go, well, what do they actually mean? Like, what's the spirit of what they're trying to say?
Yeah.
Obviously, they're saying the first thing you've given isn't quite working for them, and when they give a suggestion, you don't necessarily just implement their suggestion. You just go, what's the spirit of it? How do I get this closer?
Yeah.
You know, using that feedback as fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to take it back though to like how to get involved with games and stuff. I think all of this at the root of it is what you were saying, which is like, if you're going to be part of a community and become embedded in the industry, you just kind of have to like have grace about you, and you have to be ready to like work with other people and be social. And coming to things like Highscore or to game jams or to like other mixes that happen every now and then, or Games Week, like meeting people, just being a friendly face, and maybe sometimes, because I'm an introvert and sometimes I don't feel comfortable in new social situations, but you kind of have to push through the discomfort and actually just like try to talk to some people.
It's
and
the same in the music industry, right?
It's just all it's all relationship building, honestly.
Yeah, it's just a different community.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking the time to chat to me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for chatting.
What number high score is this? Do you guys know? 'Cause
I think it was 2017 originally at the arcade, I think it
on
was.
King Street in Melbourne, Australia. For
Yeah.
our international audience. So you guys have just come on as co-curators for this year's conference. Do you mind telling us a bit about what Highscore is actually about and why it's a conference and why we actually do it?
It's interesting. It's an event that's kind of a couple of things at once, but at its heart, it is meant to be the place for anyone working in game audio to come and be together and to learn and connect to each other. And that means everyone from the people who have the full-time jobs in studios through to freelancers and people dipping their toe in and out who might be working in other fields as well.
It was definitely started, I think, as a way of showcasing that this was an industry and an opportunity for people making music that, like, hey, maybe you've never thought about games as an opportunity to compose or to make sound design for. But the 8 years or so, approximately, however many years it's currently been going on for, it has definitely developed like people who maybe attended the first one or two, didn't have a foot in the industry, and now giving talks and giving panels and have released multiple titles and stuff. So it's also kind of developed to being a place where industry can gather, talk about really nuanced topics, but it still does retain that element of, if you don't know anything about it, or even if you're maybe a game dev in a different discipline wanting to learn about it, as Tim said, come along, and it's just a very welcoming community.
Yeah, it seems like it's not inaccessible, like for especially in an emerging industry. Like
I wish every event could feel like this, where everyone is so open and like within even yesterday, so we're on day 2 now, but yesterday at the start of the first session, you could just feel it, that everyone was there to connect with each other in a very genuine way. The games community ecosystem broadly, it's a space where you are not just encouraged, but you're expected to be you, to be yourself. And it's okay if you're a bit awkward or you're a bit whatever it is, everyone's diversity is very much celebrated.
Especially this idea that, online communities were founded around games experiences, and a lot of people who maybe even in, their teenage years or early 20s, when they're, finding themselves and figuring out what they want to do with their lives, if they didn't have that community, they could find it online through gaming. And then a lot of those people have ended up, finding out that they could make games for a living. And I think that's where a lot of this, I suppose, like welcoming in and being able to be encouraged to be yourself comes from, because it is this idea that we've decided to find community and build it ourselves, and find somewhere that we can fully feel you know, that we are represented. And I think that that's also something that I do find in especially the Australian dev community, and also in the like game audio community as well, is that there is actually a lot of storytelling and like diversity, and being able to really share your own experiences and show that through the music that you make for games, or show that through the stories you tell in games. So yeah, it is a lovely community.
Yeah. I don't think I actually introduced Tim Shiel and Amy McNickle.
Hi.
Could you tell me a bit how you got into this area of the music industry?
It's about 2013. I had been working in music and on radio a bit at that time. And at developers, there just was this wild new scene that I wasn't even aware of, even though I was a gamer and I loved games. I watched this documentary called Indie Game the Movie, which is, you know, sure, it's exactly that. They just follow a few developers. They tell the stories of a few of these small development teams making local, like, little games. And I watched that documentary and just woke up the next day going, and it was an American documentary. I was like, that must be people in Melbourne doing this. There must be. So jumped on Facebook. I was like, do I know anyone who knows anyone? And it was actually, at the time I was volunteering with Triple R, Melbourne's community radio station. And yeah, of course, the gaming community was already affiliated with Triple R, and there were these presenters. Yeah. You know, Triple R is such an amazing, diverse community in itself. Yeah. Some of my friends there were like, you should meet this person and meet that person. And eventually that led to having some coffees and me going to the first PAX Australia in Melbourne, and just really very rapidly discovering this whole world that I didn't know existed. And at the same time, this feeling of like, oh, these are my people. Like, I get this. I've been working in music for a while trying to fit in. Here, I don't even have to worry about whether I fit in. It's just where I belong. So that was cool. And then, one of the connections I made led to working on my first game, which was called Duet, which came out at the end of 2013. Cool.
I feel like sometimes controversially, not a gamer. I did not play games growing up. I didn't have, I think the first console that we had in our house, my brother bought the year I moved out. Like, it just was no real overlap. But I loved music. I get bored with things quite quickly, and so move on to different things. Be like, oh, I want to play violin, or like, oh, I want to play guitar or saxophone, but I did not have the patience to become really good at any one of them. And so I became a composer. But yeah, so worked on film, short films, animation, ended up doing a lot of like more like theater and dance and stuff. Actually, one of the first games I ever played was The Gardens Between, which you did the track for. So, and I loved that game. So I'm also making my own game. Again, with Screen Australia funding, they've got amazing funding opportunities and so supportive of the local industry. But yeah, making my own game, Planet B, that I get to make really weird experimental music for, because no one can tell me no.
It's like a blank canvas almost.
It is.
So how has all that background informed how you've curated Highscore? Like, because, you know, this is your first year curating. How did you go about it, especially as co-curators?
I think having like Tim's perspective complementing mine, because, you know, we do have such different backgrounds. Like, you know, even though I grew up playing music, I wouldn't consider myself somebody who's been in like the music industry. I enjoy going to shows, but I was never really part of that. So a lot of people in game audio transition from the music industry. So being able to get that perspective from Tim, and then I've had a lot of experience in that like more business side, and seeing the creatives maybe sometimes don't know how to have those negotiations, conversations, how to figure out what your freelance rates are, how to make sure that you get the right credits and stuff. So there were a lot of these background issues, I suppose, that really shape what the work becomes, or what the work can be, whether that's from like a sociological perspective or a business perspective, that I think we were able to like share and really develop together. Because the love of the music and the love of the sound is pretty easy to like, what games are coming out? What cool people can we convince to talk to us? So, but yeah, it's been good.
That was the fun bit, like, you know, like brainstorming what amazing people in the world might we want to fly out, and then getting a couple of them to come.
A lot of our audience are people who love instruments and music technology. What would you say is the sort of benefit of coming to something like Highscore?
Game development and game audio is it is really fun, but it's also quite technical, and there is a lot of innovation happening all of the time. And so particularly like your viewers who might be on the like nerdier end of the spectrum, which is our favorite kind of people, like, you know, even if you are not necessarily interested in games, like for example, I met a couple of people here who their background is in radio and podcast production.
Okay.
So their day jobs is essentially they're putting together some major podcasts in Australia and working at radio stations, doing promos and production bits and pieces. And they came here really just because they were curious and because they had a sense that they would enjoy it, and they just have loved it. They've loved getting into F-mod, the non-linear, the composition ideas that aren't even possible. And it's not like they can necessarily even take some of this stuff straight back to what they're doing because they're going back into these linear worlds, but for them, it's just been fun. It's just been a fun weekend and an inspiring weekend.
Definitely. I think there's a lot of parallels between like electronic music making, like exploring that sort of music making and exploring a game and the interactive and the dynamic sort of music systems, I guess you could call them. They're definitely connected, which is probably why you actually find a lot of people who maybe making electronic music getting drawn into this world a lot.
Obviously, there are great resources online to learn about these types of things, but the difference is that you get to, one, see a lot of deep dives into actual game sessions from both AAA and indie games, well-known, well-loved games that you're probably not going to find online. The people who made it talking about those systems, talking about those compositions. Highscore is a great opportunity for people to be able to actually go into these rooms and play around with this technology and see what it can do, which is really exciting, and it's a great opportunity, I think.
So, you know, having discovered all this, have you got any ideas about next year and what you might do differently? I know we're still, you know, it's the middle of day 2, but you haven't even had time to think about what happened yesterday. But you know, are there sort of trends that you're seeing that you can already see translating into something different next year? Or I'm not sure.
Keeping ourselves aware of what's trending in music, what's trending in games, what seems to be important to people. There's always more we could have put in, even as Tim said, like this year that just didn't fit. So yeah, we definitely got some other ideas up our sleeves, but we haven't discussed them yet. But
we're here to serve this community, the game audio community, and to build it and to find the people who should be here that don't know about it, and that's part of the job as well.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me. People can watch Highscore online if they've purchased an online ticket. Is that correct?
If you get a Highscore ticket, you do get access to watch everything. But I know that at least in previous years, APRA has also, after a period of time, just uploaded a handful of the talks to publicly on their YouTube channel. So you can go to the APRA AMCOS YouTube channel now and watch keynote speeches and things from previous years. So if you are curious about Highscore and whether it's something you want to attend or do jump on the live stream for the next program, watching. I mean, I've watched all of them. They're just amazing. It's an amazing resource to have those previous years' content there. So
so I think this year's content should be up there at some point. Just not sure when, but yeah, definitely can buy a ticket to a live stream if you can't make it to good old Melbourne.
Great. Well, thanks for taking the time to chat to me.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
it's been great.